one angle to the Podesta emails that I think is actually makes the strongest case for that they're involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking children, and it's very disturbing. So on the Joe Rogan show, Joe and Ian Carroll were talking about one email in particular that discussed a party involving 3 children that were going to be Ubered over to this party and would be getting into the pool for this party as entertainment for the adults, right? Now, what is so disturbing about this email is that it was sent by a woman named Tamara Lozado. Now, who's Tamara Lozado? Well, she worked for Hillary Clinton, all right, when Hillary Clinton, I believe, was working as the Secretary of State. Now, this woman, Tamara Lozado, had a website that was password controlled and membership only. This website, which I researched and found in real time, so before it was shut down and or scrubbed, this password protected website had all of the markers of being a child, not just a child porn website. It has all the markers of being a website that was actually selling children. So for example, on the front page of that website, there were all of these tabs that were sexual references, drug references, porn words, porn verbiage. And then there was also pictures of half naked or naked children. And it said, things like click here to see, this child, images of this child raw and uncut. So this woman that was providing children for entertainment for John Podesta's party to get in the pool as entertainment for his party guest was running a website that, like I said, had all the markers of being a child porn website. And again, I saw all of that in real time. I screenshot all of that, and I have all that archived in my Pizzagate Exposed series on Substack.
I outline the strangely deviant website created by the current VP of Pew Charitable Trust, Tamara Lozado, outlining her odd, sexual, borderline torturous rhetorical proclivities aimed toward her grandchildren. The names of Tamara's grandchildren are Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Lozado. In this leaked email between Tamara and John Podesta, Tamara refers to a get-together at a farm, where she refers to a heated pool. She continues, saying, quote, Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Lozado, 11, 9, and almost 7. So you'll have some further entertainment, and they will be in that pool for sure. But there's more to this story than initially perceived, much more. In 2008, the website Mama's Midwives published a home birth story written by the biological mom of these children, Alexandra Tidings Lozado. In the story, she mentions Ruby and Emerson, then says, quote, and with the next contraction, Maeve Chaim Lozado arrived. This name is the female iteration of Moshe, or Moses Chaim Lozado, a messianic cult leader who promoted black magic in the 18th century. Critics might argue that this comparison is arbitrary and point to other notable uses of the Lozado name. But among all documented uses, only one has Chaim as its middle name. Additionally, the name Maeve is both a historical and pop-modern female variant for Moses. Either Alexandra named her child after an occult messiah by accident, or these families understand the significance of their names and their lineage. Consider she's also part of the Tidings family, a powerful genealogy of U.S. Democratic politicians dating back to the 18th century. In the award-winning book, The Pursuit of Heresy, author Hofen states, quote, shortly after receiving a Magidic confirmation of his unique mission, Lozado joined a secret circle where he would communicate with apparitions called Magids that prophesied events and offered a visionary hidden knowledge, but his ceremonies were small and were covened only between a secret cult that summoned the dead. Alexandra Tidings also comes from a line of Crowleys. Her sister, Paige Crowley, named after her mother's longtime partner Arthur Crowley, whose father was the first Crowley. Some might claim that any comparison to the English occultist Aleister Crowley, based solely on similar last names, would be a reach. However, the fact that Alexandra named her daughter after Moshe Chaim Luzzatto points to an awareness and preoccupation with genealogy that extends also to her elders. Additionally, Aleister Crowley's original name was Alexander Crowley, the male iteration of Alexandra. The idea this was a fluke made by powerful pedigrees is absurd. The associations couldn't be more obvious, unless of course there's evidence that people in this family have been publicly associated with the occult.
I love starting a new scroll. The feel of it in your hands, the look, so clean, so perfectly empty.
It's important to understand that not all interpretations of the occult are inherently sinister. Many of us might enjoy horoscopes or getting our palms read. One mustn't devolve into the fundamentalists who went nuts over Harry Potter, right? But just as Islamic apologists obfuscate the brutality in the Quran, so too do followers of Aleister Crowley. In his book, Magic in Theory and Practice, he states, "A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. The bloody sacrifice, though more dangerous, is more efficacious, and for nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is the best." Referring to himself as the Beast 666, Crowley was an individualist, arch-Satanist who created the cult of Thelema, the Grand Lodge Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO, and a ritual called sex magic, which includes drinking mixtures of semen and blood. Even after his death, through his famously shallow and insidious libertine ethic, "do what thou wilt," he's continued to gain followers all over the world, some well-meaning, others not. For several decades, the Kidley sex cult led by Colin Batley psychologically terrorized and raped vulnerable children. After being jailed in 2011, investigators found that each follower had a laminated version of Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law. One girl testified that she was taken to other homes and forced to have sex with strangers at, quote, satanic orgies. And the leader had Rottweiler dogs that were vicious to everyone. It's apparent that many followers of Crowley mirror the countless Muslim scholars who obfuscate their prophet's well-documented pedophilia. For example, this verse from Aleister's diary was so disturbing, even a Thelemite asked a forum of followers if Aleister really did this to his baby. Quote, "Her breasts itch with lust of incest. She hath given her 2-year bastard boy to her lewd lover's whim of sodomy. She hath tongued her 5-month girl and asked its father to deflower it. Thin shrieks of a young child that her beast god slave mate is torturing for her pleasure." End quote. Some said it was probably poetic hyperbole or a drug-induced stupor, or saw no problem at all. Others said, quote, "The whole topic of pedophilia is central for coming to full understanding the eon of the child," end quote. Another said Crowley was tame compared to TV shows like Family Guy, and that Aleister may have had pedophile tendencies, but he wasn't a real pedophile. A real true pedophile is simply a lover of youth. Philia is a word meaning love, like agape or thelema. There are many others who excuse pederasty, so I'll end it with another Thelemite who said, quote, "You could argue, I'm sure, that a person who finds themselves in love with a child has the right to follow up his or her urges with action, so long as the kid was also up for it." After Crowley died, George King published The Secret Rituals of the OTO. This infuriated their new leader, Grady McMurtry, who conceded the book was, quote, "accurate enough to be used for initiations." The most significant secret revealed was a word being used during Thelema's rituals, a word that forever tethered their cult to the contentious origins of Freemasonry. Jabulan. It's important to note that the majority of Freemasons are good people, separate from the alleged malevolence of those at the top who both know and keep the secrets which established the need for the society in the first place. And it's those men who built this country, installing their own people into the most prominent positions of power and influence, so as to maintain their status and control that arguably control the world. If you doubt this, allow me to rebuke with 2 questions. How do you make sure your influence and power are represented across an entire people? In other words, how do you control a country? You build one. While none of this is evidence that Tamara Luzzatto is necessarily sinister, it certainly hints to a specific pattern of belief so often found among the most powerful in our society. One can confidently say that members of the Luzzatto and Tidings family knowingly named their children after 2 infamous cult leaders, one of whom has amassed a following of, on one hand, decent people who are merely interested in Crowley's aesthetic and counterculture variants, and on the other, pedophile apologists and sexual deviants. Which side the Luzzatto family is on, I leave up to you. Either way, Tamara Luzzatto is one of the most powerful women in the world, having worked as the primary advisor for Senator John D. Rockefeller's National Commission on Children, then as chief of staff for Hillary Clinton, per the recommendation of John Podesta, and is currently the senior vice president for the Pew Charitable Trust. She's someone you don't want to fuck with. Even the articles written about her by so-called reputable publications compare her and her husband to Francis and Claire Underwood from House of Cards. So while I wouldn't suggest poking the bear, I will continue to.